And we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome to the Fences, Walls, Access Gates, and Retaining Wall Workshop. Today, our presenters will be myself, Shannon McEwen. I'm Manager Building Permits. We will have Stacy Rainwater. She's the Supervising Building Permit Specialist over the submittal work group. We have Vanessa Palomo. She's our Building Permit Specialist in the Permit Issuance Work Group. And we have Dana Margaritas. She's our Assistant Manager of Building Permits. Matt Brewer, he's our Manager of Inspections. Ray Jones, she's our Senior Engineer Architect in the Engineering Work Group. We have Debbie Lay from Public Works in the Development Review team. We have Maria Caseko. She's the Assistant Planning Manager in the Comprehensive Planning Department. So she is overseeing the zoning plan review. We have Tarek Shalon. He is our Assistant Manager of Building Plans Exam. We have Danny Horvat, Assistant Fire Chief of Fire Prevention. Blair Kuhn, our Fire Plans Checker. He reviews fire prevention plans, some of which share permits with us, like access gates. And we have Ava Arroyo. She's our Management Assistant, and she just really helps put everything together in this presentation. So with that, we're going to dive right in and get started with plan submittal when you're putting in your application, and I'll turn over to Stacy Rainwater.
Hey everybody, how's it going? So from a plan submittal perspective, it's pretty straightforward once we figure out the permit type, right? So to just make sure everybody is clear what is a fence, we've given you a basic definition here: a structure erected for the purposes of enclosure, division of property, or decoration. Further down, you'll see that these are further broken down into type A and type B. So it's important to know what types of materials you're building your fence out of, because that's gonna, number one, determine if a permit is even required. And then number two, if we determine a permit is required, that's gonna make sure that we collect a complete submittal from you in terms of a site plan, where it's located, the materials, etc. If you're ever unsure if you need a permit, you can always reach out to us at the ePlan submittal email address. It'll be in a further slide. And we'll be happy to go over your project with you and just make sure that what you're building is actually considered a fence. If you look at some of the pictures here on this slide, you can see most of them look like a fence. It's pretty straightforward, but then smack dab in the middle at the bottom, there's a trash enclosure. So in terms of trash enclosures, you know, if it has a cover or a lid, it would be considered a building or a structure rather than a fence. In this instance, this would be an uncovered trash enclosure, so we would permit it as a fence or a block wall. So a little bit of things to know on this slide is the Clark County Building Administrative Code, section 2202185. It's important to remember that just because the particular fence you are constructing might not require a building permit, we always want to make sure that we're following the other technical codes or other laws in Clark County that govern your property. Okay, so with that, we'll go to the next slide. So what is not a fence? So just like we talked about previously, what is a fence with the trash enclosure? The converse would be here, a covered trash enclosure. So if you look over to the right, you'll see something that looks sort of like an equipment enclosure, and it's got a cover on top. In that case, that would not be considered a fence. That's a building or a structure. Similar to the pictures at the bottom here, where you've got it looks like a chain link enclosure inside of a building. You might think, well, yeah, that's a chain link fence. That's a fence permit. But when it's inside of a building or a parking garage, now we're talking different permit type. So you've got glass pool barriers. You may think, well, it's a barrier. It's enclosing a pool. But in terms of permitting, we want to permit that as a miscellaneous structure. A lot of this in terms of permit type has to do with contractor licensing, etc. So again, if you're not sure of what permit type you might need, if you're building something that's a little unique and could be a fence but could not be a fence, you're ever not sure, you can always reach out to us. Next slide. Okay, so access gates. We get a lot of permits for access gates, and they can be a bit complicated because we also require a fire prevention review of these permits. And not to say that that adds a layer of complication, but it increases the amount of submittal requirements. So, we don't just need to know where you're putting it and what material. Now we need to know how it's being powered. So we need to know the permit number for the meter or the power source. We need to see the connection. It's more than just, a site plan. So with access gates, again, if you're not sure, reach out to us and we'd be happy to help you out. And I think we're rounding out to around the last slide. It looks a little busy here, but it's a good slide. It has a lot of information in here. It's basically what we need at a minimum in order to get your permit accepted and into plan review. So of course, we always want a completed application form. We need to know, the address. We need to know what you're doing. We need a good scope of work. We want evaluation. So all these little areas that are highlighted, if you can see, there's a copy of an application form there. We want to make sure to hit all those highlighted points. And again, if you're not sure, reach out and we'll try to help you out. Below that is a sample of a site plan. It's a pretty robust site plan. This, in my eyes, is like the example of a perfect site plan. We don't always get site plans like this, and I don't want you to feel like you have to submit a site plan that is, as robust and as complex as this one. For residential submittals, we have some samples that we can give you that you can, use as a generic site plan. You just give us the information that we need on there and we'll work with you. But our goal is to just receive a complete submittal. So again, if you're not sure, reach out. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to just say 10 out of 10, you're going to need structural calculations. So whether you're using an SNBO calculation, which is the Southern Nevada building official standards, whether you're going to use that standard or if you've got something engineered, we're going to need to see those. So please make sure that you always include those. Make sure they're sealed and signed. With retaining walls, we're always going to need to see some approved grading plans. So make sure, if again you're not sure about something, you're unsure of what we need, just reach out. We'll be sure to help you out. We also have on our website a how-to guide which explains all of these as well. Okay, so the next slide. This is what we were talking about, the how-to guide. So this how-to guide fence block wall building permit guide, this has been updated here recently last year, so it's very up to date and all this information is accurate. So if you're unable to give us a call or can't get an email returned in time for your meeting or whatever, you just want to go online and download the information, it's there for you, okay? There's a copy of the application form. There's a commonly used property line authorization form. It's important to note that in terms of property line authorization forms, we have to use the Clark County building permit form. I'm sorry, the building property line authorization form. You might have, a good relationship with your neighbor. You guys just drew up a piece of paper, went and had it notarized, and it's just you guys together, but it has to be on this form. So similar to the Nevada State Contractors Board owner builder affidavit, we have to use their form. So again, if you're not sure, please reach out to us and we'll do our best to help you out. And here is a list of all of our contact information. The e-plan submittal email address, that's monitored pretty much by all of us here in the plan submittal department. So we usually are able to get back to you within 24 hours. I try to answer my phone as much as I can, but sometimes I find that an email is quicker. A lot of times we have to provide links and things like that. So of course, if you want to reach out to me, I'll answer you or I'll try to return your call within 24 hours. And with that, I think that's all for plan submittal.
Thank you, Stacy. So now we'll turn over to building plans exam and I'll let Tarek tell us about what they're looking for.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'll go over the plans exam section of the workshop. So the first thing we'll talk about is the what we look for on the plans. So for the site plan, we like to see the locations of all the walls or fences, and we'd like to see those highlighted, preferably in a different color. It makes it easy to identify because a lot of times we get civil plans that uh, be difficult to identify where the fence is. It would take some time. For the elevations, we like to see the heights of the fence or the wall. Details, if you're using the Southern Nevada Building Officials regional standards, and we'll have a list of those next couple of slides. You can give us a copy of whichever detail that you're using, standard detail, or if you're not using those, you have to provide us with engineering. We also like to see the total length of the fence or the wall identified somewhere, whether on the site plan or at least on the application. Also, engineering, that's calcs and structural plans are required for anything over 8 feet. The plan review service goal is 14 calendar days from date of acceptance, and corrections, if issued, we have 10 days to review those from when the responses are submitted. Also 10 calendar days. The last barriers, as Stacy mentioned, those are considered miscellaneous structures, not fences. Next slide, please. So this is just an example of a site plan. You can see how the proposed fence or subject of the permit is highlighted in a different color. We prefer to see that. And this is just an example elevation, shows the heights and the width of the fence or is what we'd like to see. Next slide, please. So these are the Southern Nevada Building Official Regional Standards for fences. So we have one for masonry fences and walls up to 8 feet in height. That's B-100-1. Masonry retaining walls up to 4 feet in height, B-100-2. Masonry fences, walls with wrought iron, B-101. Wrought iron fences up to 8 feet in height, B-114. 16 by 16 masonry pilasters up to 8 feet, that's BFS-2. 24 by 24 masonry pilasters up to 8 feet, BFS-1, and you can find those in this link in the slide here. Next slide, please. So vehicular access gates, these also fall under fencing, but for these same locations of the proposed gates, civil site plan may be used, but we prefer that you highlight the gates. The elevation, same thing, height of all the gates. Electrical plans are required for these. Single line diagram, panel schedule for automatic gates. Those electrical plans would have to be by either an electrical engineer or an electrical contractor. The gate operator specifications, if it's an automatic gate. Structural plans, if it's over 8 feet. Again, the service goals are 14 calendar days from date of acceptance, and this also requires a fire prevention review, and that's 28 calendar days from date of acceptance. So I would just plan accordingly, because we might be done and it would still be in fire prevention. Next slide, please. So this is, again, another example of what, a site plan with the gates highlighted, gate elevation with dimensions and a spec sheet for the gate operator. And I think that's it. We can turn it over to fire prevention.
Thank you, Tarek.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Shannon. I'd have to, since we didn't have a slide on that. Revisions. So revisions to fence permits, if you're gonna be adding length or height or reducing the height or the length of a fence, that's not allowed under a revision to a previously issued fence permit. That would have to be I think a supplemental or a new permit if you have to do that. But if the revision is to, I don't know, for example, modify, I don't know, the elevation of the fence, design or something like that, that doesn't impact the height or the length, that can be done as a revision.
Right, or sometimes maybe it's just moving over a foot or two, could be changing the setback, but could still be approvable. That could be a revision as well.
Correct, yes, as long as the height and length don't change.
Yes. Thank you, Tarek.
Okay. You're welcome.
And with that, we will move over to fire prevention, and we have Blair Kuhn here, and he is going to tell us about what he's looking for in his review.
Right. So on our first slide, we discussed the gate class types, and we'd like those labeled on the plans. And then we have the applicable codes, you know, the 2018 IFC, our amendments to the 2018 IFC, and then we have these listings and ASTM requirements. If you're going to have electrical gates and operations, they all need to be listed per those codes. And as far as submittal requirements, you know, it's going to be the same package as building. So most of this initial stuff is going to be already be included with building. And then again, back to the gate type, the main thing we're going to be looking for here, I'm surprised we didn't put it first, is our site plan. So some people will make a site plan that's, you know, called fire prevention site plan, or I don't think Tarek has a problem. We have often stamped the site plan that's been submitted to building for the architectural site plan, just one of those types of site plans showing the gates. We want a designation though on this plan that we're going to stamp, needs to show whether the gate is automatic or manual, and the type of gate, you know, horizontal slide, swing, vertical lift, the direction that it's going to open, if it pivots, and then in that same location, clarify the class, you know, just throw that with it, and then provide on the site plan, you know, this is the same site plan that building's going to be looking for. We just want to have those additional notes about the gate. And the gate opening has to be a minimum. If it's blocking a fire access lane, that's where a fire prevention permit is required. So that's when it's considered a fire access gate. I guess I should have explained that a little better right off the bat, but a fire access gate must be a minimum of 20 feet wide in width, and the access lane in which it's blocking has to be a minimum of 24 wide. So the gate, the access lane can only go to 20 feet wide right at the gate. We need that 24-foot wide in or out, however the gate is done. We need, if you have multiple gates, like an in and an out, we need at least one of the gates to be on a 24-foot fire access lane. Both gates will be required to be 20 foot. We have allowed the narrowing of like the exiting gate or something, but we want at least one of them 24 wide for the fire access lane. Then if it is electrical, let's see, if I'm gonna go to manual first. Manual's pretty simple for us. You can just tell us that it's a manual gate. You can explain how it's locked, or how there'll be signage notifying, you know, if this is if you have a Knox box or whatever. We can't require that you use a certain brand or you use a certain lock, but if you have a device that's listed like that, you could have a lock box that a key could be in, or something that we could utilize, there's a good chance you're going to save your gate. If there's not a way to access, they're going to go through, they have lots of tools, they're going to go through any chain locks, or whatever you have is going to end up either cut or possibly damaged in order to get in, but they'll get in. So on manual gates, it's nice to just kind of explain a way to get in, just for your sake and hopefully to save your property. If it's an AVI system, which is electrical, if it's electrical, then it's required to have an AVI system. So we're going to be looking for the detector loop and all of your other, what they're calling safety loops. These types of systems are the items that we showed on the first page, as in the manufacturer tested UL 325 and ASTM requirements. We want to see the listing information on that and make sure it's per these styles, as you can see on page 3, we go, yeah, you're there already. We describe quite well what we're looking for. And then also part of the listing is the AVI transmitter information. And you can contact the warehouse. Because what happens is when you buy one of these AVI systems, those transmitters will automatically be sent to the fire department warehouse. Manufacturers, gate installers understand and know that the transmitters are always sent to the fire department, and then they're distributed from there. These are for all types: ambulance, fire, police, will all have the same type. It's like they call it a puck. It fits up under the car or the vehicle and allows access. The one other plan that we're always looking for on an automatic gate is the last page, which shows our entry loops, exit loops. What happens is these are buried wire underground that go to a listed panel, and when this device goes over top of them, it allows the gate to automatically open. So we want to see a plan like this. We're looking for the loops to be actually 25 feet from the center of the gate. This isn't the greatest description, but we want that loop to be 25 feet from the center of the gates. And then the other thing we want noted somewhere, and quite often it's in the listing, is that the gate will fail safe in power failure in the open position. I don't know. I mean, if we see the items that I just described, I think we're pretty much good to go. We'll accept the gate. Don't know that I can't think of anything else unless someone can think of something that I may have overlooked, but I think we're good. I think that'd be good.
All right, thank you, Blair. So with that, we'll go into engineering, and I'll turn the presentation over to Ray Jones.
Okay, so we'll talk about fences and retaining walls. The Type A fencing requires engineering when the height exceeds 8 feet or has less than 50% open surface area. All extensions to increase the height of an existing Type A or Type B fence requires engineering, and all engineering submittals shall include structural calculations, structural drawings with material specifications. Next slide. Retaining walls or Type B walls greater than 24 inches require a grading plan which is prepared by a registered design professional. For commercial or subdivision projects, the Clark County Building Department approved grading plans shall be provided. Details showing the depth of the retained earth shall be included in the grading plans. Grading plans, structural plans, and structural calculations must be prepared, sealed, digitally signed, and dated by a Nevada registered design professional. Next slide. So the SNOBO regional standards may be used in lieu of structural plans and calculations, given that the walls are within the height limitations of the standard details. The conditions of the walls must match the details exactly. One cannot deviate from the SNOBO standard details. For example, sloped backfill or surcharge loading on retaining walls are not permitted. And then these are SNOBO standard details for fences and retaining walls. And then we can go to the next slide, these are the SNOBO details for the pilasters. And then the next one is the SNOBO details for the wrought iron fencing and masonry walls with wrought iron fencing. We can go to the next slide. So now we'll move on to the geotechnical and engineering code requirements for fences and retaining walls. Southern Nevada Amendment, Section 1803.2 states that fences and site walls less than 6 feet of retained height are exempt from a geotechnical report. When a soils report is not used, the maximum soil code presumptive values shall be used for the design. Where a geotechnical investigation is required, A written report of the investigation shall be submitted to the building department for review. The geotechnical report shall be prepared for Southern Nevada Amendment, Section 1803.6. All geotechnical reports shall be current within the last 12 months or accompanied by an update letter. And go to the next slide. When a soils report is not utilized, soil site class D shall be assumed for Southern Nevada Amendment, Section 1613.2.2. Southern Nevada Amendment, Section 1809.4 states that the minimum depth of the footings shall be 12 inches. Where applicable, the frost depth requirements of Section 1809.5 shall be satisfied. The minimum width of footings shall be 12 inches. Next slide. Southern Nevada Amendment, Section 1610.1 states that the foundation walls and retaining walls shall be designed to resist lateral soil loads. Please refer to this code section for the code presumptive design values. And go to the next. Southern Nevada Amendment Section 1610.1.1 addresses the seismic loading for basement, foundation, and retaining walls. These walls shall be designed to resist the seismic load due to the lateral earth pressure based on the equations below in this slide as required per section 1807.2.2. Okay, next. Southern Nevada Amendment Section 1807.2.3 discusses safety factors. Retaining walls shall meet a minimum safety factor of 1.5 for sliding and overturning. Alternate load combinations discussed in this section shall be used to design the retaining wall footings instead of Section 1605. Where earthquake or wind loads are included, the minimum safety factor for retaining wall sliding and overturning is 1.1. Then go to the next slide. Okay, now we're going to move on to the special inspection requirements, which are required for each material type. Southern Nevada Amendment Section 1705.3 states the special inspection requirements for concrete. This section does include an exception for isolated and continuous concrete footings supporting walls, where the structural design of the footing is based on a concrete compressive strength of 2,500 psi, regardless of the concrete compressive strength specified in the construction documents. Please note that all concrete walls require special inspection. Southern Nevada Amendment Section 1705.4 states the special inspection requirements for masonry. There is an exception for masonry special inspection where the masonry walls are designed with allowable stress design at half the masonry compressive strength. The walls must also meet the height restrictions listed here within this code section. And then Southern Nevada Amendment Section 1705.6.1 is for the special inspection of wall backfill. Special inspection of wall backfill shall be required for site retaining walls when the retained soil height exceeds 6 feet or for portions of the wall that receive surcharge loading from adjacent walls or other structures, regardless of the retained soil height or sloped backfill. One more slide. And here's some helpful hints for your submittal. Please ensure that the scope of permit is shown on the grading plan and applicable details are provided. For example, if you're applying for a 4-foot maximum retaining wall, please do not include details for 6-foot and 8-foot maximum retaining walls. The walls section shall show the drainage system for retaining walls. If a soils report is being used, please provide that soils report. Also include the geotechnical information within the structural general notes. And then also list all of your special inspection requirements on the plan. If the special inspections are listed, which aren't required per code, the plans examiner will indicate that the special inspection is required since it was requested by the registered design professional. Similarly, do not include a blanket list of special inspections. Inspections should be specific to that permit. And then finally, the soils report, the structural plans and calculations shall be digitally signed and electronically sealed by the registered design professional. A signature image is not a digital signature and does not meet the security encryption requirements. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Ray. So let's move on to our civil review by Public Works Development Review Team, and I'll turn over to Debbie Lay.
Hi, my portion of the review is basically what civil does is we look at drainage, we look at easements, a lot of there's a lot of engineering that goes into the plans, and so my part is to make sure we're using the plans per the designs for the project. So all the thought process should be done, and we're just making sure that the walls aren't in conflict with those designs. And so again, like the others have said, it needs to be a clear plan, as much information as possible to make it clear. But in a lot of cases, we already have grading plans for the project. And ideally, we have those plans, and you're just saying, these are the walls we're building per these plans. And so that's a lot of the trouble that we run into, is just that we're not getting the version of plans that we want. Like it might be an unsigned version or a version that's not consistent with the designs. So as far as the majority, like the subdivision block walls, that's a lot of the problems that we have, is that it's just not the approved grading plan. And so that's what we run into, is just, if the work's been done and the plans are approved as far as the grading plans, ideally we just move those forward into these block wall permits or retaining wall permits, and we're just saying these walls per this design. And in a lot of cases, those also include the site zone, because the site zones are tricky. In the slide, I've referenced Title 30, which it details a lot of the process and the wall codes that we adhere to. But with the site zones, we use the RTC standard drawings, and that is for the visibility at the intersection. That's one of the trickiest parts of, for like a homeowner on a wall permit. So those standards are listed there, and the more clear the plan is, the better. Because, we're looking at all different things. I'm looking at all the detail that's on the plans. Like, if the property line, for example, isn't in the right place, then it just creates a problem. So we look at the cross sections and those grading plans just to make sure, again, that what's on your application is what's on those plans. And oftentimes, if what you're presenting is not consistent with what is approved, sometimes a revision's needed, and then you go back to the grading permit to do that revision. So I've listed, like I said, the code references there, but ideally, the developer or whoever has those approved drawings can give those to like a masonry contractor to make your life easier and ours. Next slide. Can we get the next one?
Debbie, this should be the next one about gates.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see it?
No, it's not. Oh, okay, here we go. Sorry. The gates are often on the approved grading plans as well, and showing the setbacks, because that's what we're looking for. Again, we need the approved stamp plans, because for instance, if they had a waiver and it's already on the grading plans and reflecting that location, then we don't have to stress about it. If it's on an approved grading plan, then we know that those issues have already been resolved. So I listed again the code section, and these are the setbacks for gates. Yeah, I think that covers it. So again, we're looking at civil plans, not necessarily site plans, but we do make sure that they're consistent. So there's just so much more detail on the civil plans for us, for like civil and zoning to look at. That's preferred. But again, if it's something that's like say a property that's existing for many years and there's not any new approved plans, then we'll just review it with the codes specified there. And just to keep it short, I'll keep it at that. And if you have questions, let me know.
Thank you, Debbie. And Ava's put Debbie's email address in the chat for anybody who needs to contact her. And with that, we'll move over to zoning plans exam, and Maria Caseco is going to present. Maria, it looks like you're muted.
You see, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sharon. Hi, everyone. What does zoning look at during the fancy and wall reviews? Normally, we look at site plan and grading plans, as everyone has mentioned, so I'm not going to go to details of the same information on site plan. We look at the details. Make sure you label everything on your site plan, streets and everything like he previously mentioned. Details of wall height, see from grade level, materials, see normally like Title 30 explains the percentage of opening areas on area when is required. Zoning designation, normally you have to mention the zoning, as you know that different zoning requires different requirements. And if you have a land use, make sure you provide the land use and the conditions of approval or the notes of final action, because it will require probably different conditions. Title 30 wall definitions: an opaque structure constructed with masonry, brick, concrete, stucco, or other similar materials greater than 36 inches high. I think you saw the some of the examples which is Stacy, I think you showed you on at the beginning. Title 30 fence definition: any artificial barrier other than a solid wall greater than 36 inches in height, constructed of any materials or combination of materials, erected within a required setback. Okay, next page. Single family. Normally, like people fences and walls proposed outside of the setback shall be limited to primary structure or accessory structure height, whichever is less. Front setback fences or walls proposed within the front setback shall be limited in height as follows. Residential district 3 foot maximum within the first 15 feet. A fence may be increased to up to 6 feet if decorative in those zoning RS 80, RS 40, RS 20, and RS 10. I hope you guys know that we changed the zoning naming district. A 6 foot high wall is permissible along collector and arterial streets. So those are the difference. A single family dwelling may restrict access with an access gate if access to the dwelling is from an arterial collector street. The access gate shall be set back at least 20 feet from the property line. And this one we coordinate with the fire department. So normally when they look at it and we coordinate when we are approving gates, okay, as he mentioned, with fire department and architecture. In the urban area, fences and walls along a street shall be decorative. Fences and walls within the non-urban area need not to be decorative in these areas like Moapa or Logindale or somewhere. Those are non-urban area. Okay, next. Commercial and residential subdivision and community walls. Walls being reviewed for commercial projects, residential communities. are required to be submitted on approved grading. I think engineering and civil mentioned that. Normally these are the problem. Sometimes people, they just submit plans where they don't, and we want approved grading, and that should stick to everyone, that approved grading, and just show where the walls going to be erected. Okay. The address for the permits is typically the grading permit address. So make sure you just look at what the grading was addressed. That is the address you put for your walls. Retaining walls shall be no more than 3 feet in height as measured above finished grade of the street or sidewalk or adjacent property. Retaining walls may be increased to 6 feet as follows. The fence located on top of the retaining wall must be 85% or up to 85%. Subdivision retaining walls along a residential or local private street shall provide a minimum of 6-foot landscape strip between the wall and the sidewalk of the street. Interior subdivision retaining walls between residential lots with initial development may be increased without additional landscaping requirement. And that is zoning. And if you wanted to, I think we provided our email address there. If you have questions, we are always open to answer your questions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And yeah, the zoning plans check email is posted in the chat as well. And with that, let's say you got all your disciplines reviewed and approved on your fence permit. So we'll work over to assessing your fees, and I'll hand over to Dana Margaritis.
Hi, so the fee workup team will calculate the building permit fees once all the workflow tasks have been completed. The building and plan review fees are based on the project valuation, which is determined by the total value of work, including labor and materials. You can find the full definition in the administrative code on our website. Go to services, then library, current codes, and ordinances. If you'd like an estimate of your permit fees, you may use the fee calculator on our website. To locate the fee calculator, you're going to go to Services, Permit Issuance, and then there is a tile labeled Fee Calculator. Please note, in addition to the permit and plan review fees, access gates will also be assessed a fire prevention fee of $90 per access gate. On the fee calculator page, select the blue fee calculator, then go to the next page and select permit. Once you enter the valuation, it will calculate the permit, plan review, and zoning plan review fees. There will be no plumbing or mechanical fees associated with a fence or a wall. In the event there is lighting on a block wall or electrical for the access gates, those fees will typically be charged on the electrical permit. Next slide. Okay. Once the fee workup team has finished calculating the fees, they will put the permit in ready to issue status. The contact will then receive 2 emails. One letting you know the permit is ready and the amount due, and the other lets you know you have conditions that need to be met prior to issuance. Make sure to open the attachments in the emails to get the invoice and the list of conditions.
All right, thank you, Dana.
You're welcome.
Now we'll move over to the permit issuance work group, and Vanessa will present to us.
So once all the departments have reviewed and approved your plans, the permit will make its way to our plan coordination team for us to add any conditions that could be required prior to the permit issuance, which is listed here on the slide. For the property line authorization, this form is available on our website under all forms. This form will be required when any wall is constructed on an actual property line that is owned by 2 parties, and it is required to be notarized. Next slide, please. So just keep in mind that all prior to permit issuance conditions must be met before the system will allow you to make payment. If you need any assistance, you can always reach out to our permit issuance team directly at the email shown on this slide. Next slide, please. So once all the prior to permit issued conditions have been met, only the licensed contractor or the owner builder of record can make that payment online through their portal. Customers can pay via credit card, trust account, or e-check. If you have any questions about payments using wire transfers or trust accounts, please reach out directly to our finance department for assistance on the email shown below on the slide. After the payment has been made, customers will be emailed a copy of the receipt, and the permit and the approved plans are available for download through the contract portal. I believe that's all I have.
Thanks, Anissa. All right, so you got your permit. You're going to go out and construct your walls, and I'm going to turn over to Matt Brewer so he can go over inspections with you.
Hi, thanks, Shannon.
Yeah.
So here's a brief description of the types of inspections you might need to schedule if you have a residential fence or a commercial fence. Listed them out here. Not every inspection is going to be required for every type of fence, but these are the ones that are available to schedule. And they may not always line up with the type of fence you're building, but you can always talk to me or one of the supervisors and we'll get you on the right track. Okay, next slide, please. So this is what I mean. Sometimes your fence looks like that concrete tilt-up wall panel on the side or a wrought iron fence on the right. You're usually going to have a foundation. You may not always have CMU or pre-grout, but the types of permits we have, this is the kind of a one size fits all. So we'll conduct the inspections that are required. But like you said, if there's any questions, just reach out to us and we'll help you out along the way. Okay, next slide. So you're going to have different types of foundations. Sometimes they'll be cast in place and sometimes it'll be existing foundation, like the one on the right where they're installing a post-installed anchor to mount the fence. That type of installation will require special inspections, so just be aware of that. Make sure that your third-party agency is on board and performing those inspections as needed. Okay, next slide. And then along with your site plan that's reviewed by the building department and your structural details, we also have to rely on the civil plans. Like Debbie said, we've got certain requirements that need to be installed. You can see here we've highlighted there's some wall opening details that are only occur on the civil plans. So be aware that you're going to have to look at multiple construction documents to get the full picture here. But we don't want these things to be missed, during your construction because they're vital to a fence. You don't want to create a flood or back up the water on your own property. Okay, next slide, please. And again, this is just a highlight of that detail on the civil plan, saying that you need to have those wall openings installed, normally along a naturally occurring drainage line or even now an artificial drainage area. Okay, next slide, please. And we got a lot of these slides, I'm sorry. Again, just a highlight of the same thing. Okay, next slide. So inspections, I kind of highlighted all the requirements that could be potentially on a fence. So one will be a mixed design. If it's required for your type of fence, then you'll have to submit this form along with the pertinent information to get your mixed design approved. Okay, next slide. Then foundation inspection. This is typically, rebar continuous footing like shown on the left, or it could be individual post spread footings like the one in the bottom. Just again, work with the supervisor if you have questions, but you're going to always have to schedule some sort of foundation inspection for your fence or wall permit. And this is what we do. We verify the size of it and everything. So a pre-grout, if you do have a CMU type of fence or wall that you're building, then we do a pre-grout inspection. That's to verify that the the cells are clean, the reinforcements in place, clean outs are installed if needed based on the height of the wall. So a pre-grout inspection on CMU walls is required, but it may not be required on a concrete wall, but that may be the only type of inspection you're able to schedule. But if you need to schedule that, and then we'll work with you to get the details right and the inspection notes right. Okay, next slide. Then damp proofing. This is a very important part of your wall. If you're retaining any kind of soil, you want to protect that wall. You don't want to let the sulfates in our ground or our groundwater, eat away your expensive wall. So make sure that those damp proofing installations are installed correctly. Weep holes are installed correctly. So this is another inspection in the sequence that may or may not apply to your fence, but if it does, make sure you schedule that. Okay, next slide, please. Then this is wall drainage, a little bit different than the damp proofing. The wall drainage occurs, on the outside of the wall, but it's vital to protect your wall. You want to take that groundwater and direct it away from, definitely retaining walls or basement walls such as this one. Okay, next slide. AV access, I know Fire talked about it. It's a requirement prior to final building of the building permit that you have your fire clearance. So make sure your AV access has been verified by fire and that they have a fire clearance installed. Okay, next slide. And then when it comes to your final building inspection, DASMA, that's where we took this information from. Its main purpose is to avoid any injuries from a sliding gate or a swinging gate. There's certain entrapment zones that we want to verify that all the safety measures are in place, such as the automatic stops or the sensors. This is basically, you can read through this and all the different gate notes there, but it's an important thing to consider that we want to make sure that the sliding gate or the sliding gate is very that it has all the safety protections in place. Okay, next slide, please. And this one's a swinging gate, same thing. There's some entrapment zones there that we want to make sure that people can't, pedestrians walking by or little kids playing on the gate don't accidentally get injured by a gate moving. It could really cause some serious problems there. So that's all part of your final building inspection. We're going to take a look at the signage and the sensors and make sure that these safety elements are in place. Okay, next slide, please.
Matt, I think that's your last one.
Oh, that's it. I was trying to rush through just so that we didn't take up a lot of time. As always, just please, if you have any questions, call, reach out to inspections, and we'll help you along the way. So thanks.
Thanks, Matt. And inspections email is in the chat there, developing@clarkcountynv.gov. And with that, just a little disclaimer here. Wanted to let you all know, although all of this information is very valuable, we are always trying to improve things. So some of the information in here may change a bit, just in some making improvements in our processes and such. But overall, the information should stay for quite a while. So always, watch our website for updated information. We have these workshops monthly, and you might see this fences, walls, retaining walls, and gate workshop come up again, within the next year or so, and might have some more updated information on it. We do also have a YouTube channel now where we're posting the recording, and you can visit the YouTube channel. The link to our channel is on the webpage, where you can watch any of the recordings that you've attended or any future ones. The only thing that you're going to be missing when you're going to the YouTube channel is where we're coming to the presentation now, where we're going to stop the recording. I'm going to open up the conversation to any questions that you all may have, and all the Clark County staff will turn on their cameras and we'll just go live with questions and answers. So with that, Ava, if you'd like to go ahead and stop the recording.